What does it say about modern wellness culture when the plants people pay to eradicate from their lawns turn out to have more documented medicinal use than half the supplements on the market? I've spent years cross-referencing traditional ethnobotanical records with clinical research, and the pattern is hard to ignore. The most chemically active plants in your city aren't in a greenhouse or a pharmacy. They're pushing up through sidewalk cracks and colonizing vacant lots. This video covers 20 of them, and by the end, you won't look at a so-called weed the same way. Number 1, dandelion. Every spring, American homeowners spend hundreds of millions of dollars on herbicides, and the number 1 target is Taraxacum officinale, the dandelion. A plant that traditional medicine across 4 continents used as a liver tonic, diuretic, and digestive aid for over 1,000 years. The bitter compounds in dandelion, called sesquiterpene lactones, stimulate bile production, which is how your liver processes fats and clears metabolic waste. Traditional European herbalists called it pis en lit, and that wasn't colorful language. The diuretic effect is real and measurable, and clinical work on dandelion leaf extract has found urinary output comparable to some pharmaceutical diuretics, without the potassium depletion side effect that makes those drugs problematic long-term. The root is also one of the better natural sources of inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria and slows glucose absorption. The leaves carry more beta-carotene than carrots and more calcium per gram than milk. So you're chemically eradicating a plant that's doing 3 things simultaneously that you might otherwise buy 3 separate supplements to accomplish. The plants that follow get stranger, more obscure, and in some cases more chemically active than anything you'd find in a health food store. Number 2, plantain, broadleaf. Plantago major doesn't look like much. It's a flat rosette of oval leaves with parallel veins, growing in the most abused soil in the city. Compacted gravel paths, sidewalk edges, playground dirt, parking lot margins. Medieval field surgeons carried it specifically for wound treatment, and modern analysis has confirmed exactly why that worked. The leaves contain allantoin, the same compound used in commercial wound healing creams, and it promotes cell growth, meaning it actively speeds up tissue repair rather than just cutting infection risk. You're getting the same active molecule from a plant growing through a sidewalk crack as you'd get from a tube of pharmaceutical-grade skin cream. The bioavailability from a crushed fresh leaf differs from a standardized cream, but the chemistry is identical. Plantain also produces mucilage, a gel-forming compound that coats and protects irritated tissue, which is why it shows up in traditional remedies for coughs and sore throats. It works the same way commercial throat preparations do. Some botanists call it white man's footprint because it spread across North America wherever settlers cleared and disturbed ground. The plant follows human damage. That relationship between disturbance and medicinal chemistry runs through almost everything on this list. Number 3, chickweed. Stellaria media does something almost no other plant in a temperate city manages. It grows through winter. While everything else dies back in November, chickweed pushes up through frost, colonizes bare soil in January, and stays green when the ground is frozen solid around it. That cold weather growth habit means it's available as food during the exact months when fresh greens are hardest to find, and its nutritional profile is worth taking seriously. The protein content per dry weight runs higher than most people expect from something that looks this delicate, and it carries measurable levels of vitamin C, iron, calcium, and magnesium alongside that. Traditionally, it was applied topically for itching and eczema, and the mechanism is saponins, soap-like compounds that reduce surface tension and produce mild anti-inflammatory effects on skin. Those same saponins interact with the gut lining in ways that may affect cholesterol absorption and immune signaling. The research on chickweed specifically is still early, but the compound class is well studied in quinoa and oats. From an agronomy standpoint, chickweed germinates in fall, overwinters as a small plant, then completes its life cycle before summer heat arrives, filling a window no cultivated green crop occupies. Number 4, purslane. Portulaca oleracea contains more omega-3 fatty acids per gram than any other leafy plant ever measured. Not a modest amount, not a trace. More than flaxseed by some measures, and in a form that includes EPA, the long-chain omega-3 that most plant sources can't produce at all. EPA is the fatty acid people buy fish oil capsules for, because of its role in cardiovascular protection and anti-inflammatory signaling. It's sitting in a plant that most gardeners pull out of their vegetable beds and throw in the compost. Purslane is a succulent, so it stores water in its thick leaves and stems, which is exactly why it thrives in hot, dry, compacted urban soil while your cultivated vegetables struggle through a drought. Beyond the omega-3 content, it's also high in glutathione, the body's primary antioxidant compound, and it contains betalain pigments, the same ones found in beets, with documented anti-inflammatory and liver protective effects. It also produces melatonin at levels unusual for a leafy green, confirmed across multiple analyses. Across the Middle East, Greece, Mexico, and large parts of Asia, purslane never got reclassified as a weed. That reclassification happened specifically in Northern European and North American agricultural contexts, where the working definition of weed was essentially anything that grows without being asked. Number 5. Yarrow. Achillea millefolium gets its name from the myth that Achilles used it to stop bleeding in his soldiers' wounds. That story is almost certainly retrofitted folklore, but the pharmacology underneath it isn't mythology at all. The plant contains achylein, an alkaloid with documented hemostatic effects, meaning it helps blood clot faster. It also contains azaleine, an anti-inflammatory compound that forms specifically during steam distillation of the plant's oils, and camphor, which works against both microbes and pain. Modern clinical trials have confirmed what field surgeons apparently knew, with in vitro and animal studies backing the hemostatic and anti-inflammatory activity. What ethnobotanists pay attention to is independent convergence. Native American groups used yarrow for fever. European armies carried it as a field dressing. Chinese traditional medicine worked with it separately. 3 unconnected medical traditions landing on the same plant for overlapping uses is the kind of signal that suggests real empirical discovery, not cultural borrowing or coincidence. That's a higher bar of evidence than most supplements currently on the market can claim. Yarrow grows in full sun, tolerates poor dry soil, and flowers from June through October in highway medians and vacant lots. It's not hiding. Number 6. Mugwort. Artemisia vulgaris belongs to the same genus as artemisinin, the compound that became the most effective malaria treatment of the 20th century. That's not a trivial connection. It tells you something real about the chemical depth this plant family carries. Mugwort itself contains thujonate, a compound also found in wormwood and sage, and at low doses it appears to act on GABA receptors, the same receptor system that anti-anxiety medications and sedatives target. Traditional use for sleep and anxiety has a plausible neurochemical basis, even if the clinical picture is still developing. The moxibustion research is where it gets harder to dismiss. In traditional Chinese medicine, dried mugwort gets burned near acupuncture points, and several randomized controlled trials on using that technique to turn breech babies in late pregnancy have shown statistically significant results, replicated enough times that obstetric literature takes it seriously. Beyond that, mugwort contains quercetin and luteolin, both with well-documented anti-inflammatory activity, and its bitter compounds stimulate digestive secretions, which is why it shows up in European bitters formulations going back centuries. Thujonate content means preparation and dosage matter here more than with most plants on this list. Number 7. Lamb's quarters. Before corn took over as the default grain of the Americas, indigenous populations across North America were storing and eating Chenopodium album, what we now call lamb's quarters or goosefoot. Archaeologists have pulled its seeds from pre-Columbian storage caches across the continent. Then European agriculture arrived, called it a weed, and sprayed it out of cultivated fields. The nutritional data is genuinely striking. Lamb's quarters leaves carry more protein per gram than spinach, and more calcium per gram than kale, with a complete amino acid profile that's unusual for a leafy green. The seeds are closely related to Chenopodium quinoa, and their protein and fat profile is comparable. It's also a nitrogen accumulator, pulling nitrates from degraded urban soil, which is exactly why it thrives in vacant lots and construction margins where most cultivated plants fail. That same capacity means you want clean ground when you harvest it, because it concentrates whatever the soil holds. Preparation is straightforward. Blanch or cook it to reduce oxalate content. Rinse the seeds before use, and that's it. The dusty white coating on young leaves is a natural waxy bloom, not mold. And it's one of the easiest ID markers you'll find. We're shipping quinoa from Peru when its close relative grows free in every vacant lot in North America. Number 8. Nettle. Stinging nettle. Urtica dioica announces itself before you touch it. The sting comes from hollow silica needles on the leaf surface that inject a cocktail of formic acid, histamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine directly into your skin. It's a sophisticated chemical defense system, and somewhat ironically, it's part of why this plant has such a long therapeutic history. The deliberate application of nettle sting to arthritic joints, called urtication, has been tested in clinical settings, and peer-reviewed trials show reduced pain scores in osteoarthritis patients compared to controls. The mechanism involves counter-irritation and the local release of anti-inflammatory compounds from the sting itself. Beyond the sting, nettle leaf is one of the most nutritionally complete wild plants in the temperate world, carrying iron, calcium, magnesium, and vitamins A, C, and K. The iron and vitamin C occur together in the same plant, which matters because vitamin C dramatically improves iron absorption. Nettle root extract has also been studied for prostate enlargement in older men, with several trials showing symptom reduction comparable to pharmaceutical options. Cook or dry the leaves, and the sting disappears completely, leaving the nutrition intact. Number 9. Clover. Red and white. Clover fixes atmospheric nitrogen through a symbiotic relationship with rhizobium bacteria in its root nodules, which is why agronomists use it to restore depleted soil. That's basic agronomy. What gets less attention is that clover also produces isoflavones, a class of phytoestrogens that bind to estrogen receptors in the human body. And the clinical research on this is more developed than most people realize. Trifolium pratense, red clover, has been studied specifically for menopausal symptom management. Its isoflavones, including formanonetin and biochanin A, produce mild estrogenic effects, and multiple trials have shown positive results for hot flash frequency and bone density in postmenopausal women. White clover, Trifolium repens, carries a lower isoflavone concentration but is far more common in urban lawns. Both species also contain coumestans, another phytoestrogen class. People with hormone-sensitive conditions should be aware of that with regular high-volume use. Clover got pulled from commercial lawn seed mixes in the 1950s because it couldn't survive broadleaf herbicide treatments. Before that, it was considered a desirable lawn plant because its nitrogen fixation kept grass green through drought. The weed label wasn't a botanical judgment. It was a side effect of herbicide chemistry. Number 10. Wild garlic. Every spring, Allium ursinum carpets the floors of urban woodland edges and shaded parks with broad green leaves and white star-shaped flowers. Walk through a patch of it, and the smell tells you exactly what you're dealing with before you've even looked down. The pharmacological profile is closely related to cultivated garlic, but with some meaningful differences. Wild garlic produces allicin, the sulfur compound behind garlic's cardiovascular effects, and analytical chemistry shows higher concentrations of certain flavonoids and polyphenols than you'd find in cultivated varieties. Traditional users across Central and Eastern Europe favored the wild plant specifically for stronger systemic effects, and the chemistry backs that preference up. Meta-analyses on garlic supplementation show consistent, modest reductions in systolic blood pressure and LDL cholesterol, working through a lysin's effect on hydrogen sulfide signaling in blood vessels, which promotes vasodilation, and its inhibition of platelet aggregation. Wild garlic leaves also carry adenosine, which affects heart rate regulation directly. One hard rule applies here. If a crushed leaf doesn't smell strongly of garlic, don't eat it. Lily of the valley shares the same habitat and can cause severe poisoning. The smell test isn't optional. Number 11, burdock. Arctium lapa is the plant responsible for Velcro. An engineer studied its burrs under a microscope after they stuck to his dog's fur, copied the hook and loop structure, and built an industry around it. That part's well documented. What gets less attention is the root, which carries one of the more interesting prebiotic profiles in the wild plant world. Burdock root ranks among the highest natural sources of inulin outside chicory root, and inulin selectively feeds bifidobacterium and lactobacillus species in the gut, shifting the microbiome toward anti-inflammatory bacterial populations. The detox language wellness marketing attaches to burdock is mostly nonsense in the way it's framed, but that underlying mechanism is real and well studied. The root also contains arctiginin, a lignin compound with documented anti-tumor activity in cell culture and animal studies. It's not a cancer treatment, but researchers are actively investigating the compound class. Add the sesquiterpene lactones with anti-inflammatory activity, and you've got a plant running several mechanisms at once, which is actually how most traditional plant medicines work, not through a single isolated molecule. Burdock grows in vacant lots and park edges across North America and Europe, and Japan has been eating it as a staple vegetable for centuries. Number 12. Mallow. Common mallow. Malva sylvestris grows in sidewalk cracks, along walls, and in compacted urban soil that gets decent sun. Ancient Roman agricultural texts referenced it as both food and medicine, so we're not talking about a recent discovery here. The whole plant is edible, leaves, flowers, and unripe seed pods, and every part produces mucilage, the same gel-forming compound we saw in plantain. Mallow's mucilage content runs higher than most plants on this list, and it works mechanically, coating the throat and bronchial passages, reducing irritation, and suppressing the cough reflex without any chemical intervention. European clinical trials on mallow-based cough syrups have shown results comparable to conventional antitussive medications for dry, irritating coughs. The German Commission E, which is Europe's evidence-based regulatory body for herbal medicine, has officially approved mallow leaf and flower for throat and bronchial irritation. That's a systematic evidence review reaching a positive conclusion, not a wellness blogger's opinion. That approval standard is actually stricter than what most respiratory supplements sold in the US are required to meet. Mallow's growing through the sidewalk outside your building, and it has more regulatory backing for its respiratory claims than most of what's stocked in the cough and cold aisle. Number 13. Shepherd's purse. Capsella bursa pastoris gets its name from the triangular seed pods that look like the small pouches medieval shepherds carried on their belts. It grows on every continent except Antarctica, in garden paths, between paving stones, and in any disturbed soil that gets reasonable light. What makes its distribution interesting is that it's one of the most genetically plastic plants known to science. Shepherd's purse adapts to wildly different climates and soils, completes its life cycle fast enough to run multiple generations per year, and resists eradication from cultivated ground so effectively that farmers have fought it continuously for thousands of years. Traditional use across European midwifery focused specifically on bleeding control, including postpartum hemorrhage, which is a life-threatening condition. The plant contains tyramine, choline, and acetylcholine, compounds that affect smooth muscle contraction, and in vitro work has confirmed vasoconstricting activity from its extracts. The German Commission E reviewed it, with more cautious conclusions than for mallow, but the cross-cultural convergence on the same specific application follows the same pattern we've seen repeatedly. It also flowers before the last frost, and its young leaves have been eaten as a peppery spring green in Korean cooking for centuries. Number 14. Sorrel. Rumex acetosa has a sharp, sour flavor that comes from its oxalic acid content, and that sourness is exactly why pre-industrial Europeans valued it so highly as a spring green. Scurvy killed sailors and caused bleeding gums, loose teeth, and organ failure, and sorrel treated it centuries before anyone knew what ascorbic acid was. Traditional healers didn't understand the mechanism. They just knew that sour spring greens fixed the problem, and the clinical outcome preceded the biochemistry by hundreds of years. The oxalic acid that makes sorrel sour also binds calcium, so people with kidney stones or gout should be cautious with large amounts. Cooking reduces oxalate content, which is why the traditional French preparation as a cooked soup isn't just a culinary preference, it's also the safer way to eat it regularly. Beyond vitamin C, sorrel carries quercetin and kaempferol, flavonoids with documented anti-inflammatory and antioxidant activity. The root contains anthraquinones with laxative effects, which is why traditional medicine used the root and leaves for completely different purposes. Sorrel's perennial, so it comes back from the same root system every spring, with arrow-shaped leaves and a lemony sharpness that's impossible to miss. Number 15. Wood sorrel. Oxalis acetosella looks enough like clover that most people walk right past it, and that's a reasonable mistake because the three-leaflet structure is nearly identical. But bite a leaf and the confusion ends immediately. It's sharply sour, with a clean citrus tang that comes from oxalic acid at concentrations higher than common sorrel. The Oxalis genus runs to hundreds of species worldwide, and several have become established urban weeds across North America and Europe. Wood sorrel specifically colonizes shaded ground under trees, north-facing walls, and garden beds where most other edible plants can't get enough light to survive. It also closes its leaves at night and in cold weather, a behavior called nyctinisty, which makes it easy to spot once you know what you're looking for. Traditional use focused on its cooling, refreshing quality in hot weather and its role as a flavoring agent, used the way we'd use lemon juice now. It also carries vitamin C and flavonoids alongside that oxalic acid. People with a history of calcium oxalate kidney stones should be cautious with it, but for healthy adults, moderate consumption is generally considered safe. Number 16. Knotweed. Raynautria japonica destroys building foundations, collapses riverbanks, and gets listed as a structural defect in UK property surveys. Local councils spend millions every year trying to kill it. It's also the single richest natural source of resveratrol on Earth. Resveratrol is the compound that launched a wave of supplement companies when early research suggested it could activate proteins linked to longevity and metabolic regulation. The supplement industry overclaimed badly, and human trials produced mixed results, partly because resveratrol has poor bioavailability, meaning it metabolizes so fast your body can't use much of it before it's gone. The compound is genuinely active, but the anti-aging framing ran well ahead of the data. Knotweed also contains imodin, with documented anti-inflammatory and antiviral activity, and picotanol, a resveratrol metabolite that researchers are still actively studying in cancer biology and metabolic disease. In Japan, the young spring shoots have been eaten for centuries, with a flavor close to rhubarb. Its invasiveness comes from the same biology that makes it pharmacologically interesting. It evolved to colonize volcanic soil disturbance in Japan, and simply applies that same resilience everywhere else it lands. Number 17. Ground ivy, creeping Charlie. Before hops took over European brewing, medieval brewers used Glaucoma heteracea to bitter their ale. The drink was called alehoof, and ground ivy was cultivated specifically for that purpose. Hops replaced it not because they worked better, but because they could be standardized, traded, and taxed. Ground ivy was everywhere and free, so the economics killed its commercial use and its medicinal reputation went with it. That's a pattern worth paying attention to. The pharmacology didn't change when the economics did. Ground ivy contains rosmarinic acid, the same anti-inflammatory compound found in rosemary and lemon balm, and its concentration in ground ivy is comparable to rosemary and higher than most commercial herbal teas marketed for respiratory support. Traditional Northern European herbalists used it specifically for congestion, sinusitis, and chronic coughs, calling it gill over the ground and treating it as a lung herb. Rosmarinic acid works by inhibiting the complement system, a part of the immune cascade involved in allergic and inflammatory responses, and studies on it for hay fever and asthma showed generally positive results. Crush a leaf of ground ivy and you'll smell exactly why people trusted it. That minty herbal scent is the volatile oil and rosmarinic acid fraction, and it's currently being sprayed off lawns while rosemary extract capsules sell for $12 a bottle. Number 18. Amaranth. Wild amaranth/pigweed. Amaranthus retroflexus was a sacred crop of the Aztec civilization, produced in such quantities that it functioned as state tribute. When Spanish conquistadors arrived, they banned its cultivation specifically because of its role in religious ceremonies. What they couldn't ban was the wild ancestor, which kept growing in disturbed soil across the Americas and eventually spread across the globe. That plant is now one of the most herbicide-resistant species in industrial agriculture, having evolved resistance to glyphosate, atrazine, and multiple other herbicide classes. Farmers call it pigweed and lose sleep over it. It's also, gram for gram, more nutritious than most of the crops it grows alongside. Amaranth seeds contain lysine, an amino acid that's limited or absent in corn, wheat, and rice, which is what makes amaranth protein complete. The leaves are edible and high in iron, calcium, and folate. The genetic plasticity that lets it survive glyphosate is the same biology that lets it thrive in compacted gravel and produce a complete protein crop in soil that would kill your garden vegetables. The Aztecs built a civilization around it. Industrial agriculture is currently losing a chemical arms race against it. Number 19, fennel, wild fennel. Feniculum vulgar is native to the Mediterranean but has naturalized so thoroughly in California, the Pacific Northwest, and Australia that those regions now classify it as invasive. It grows in dense colonies along highways and vacant lots, reaches 6 feet tall, and produces thousands of seeds per plant. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. The compound behind that anise flavor, anethole, relaxes smooth muscle in the gastrointestinal tract, which is the mechanism behind centuries of traditional use for bloating, cramping, and colic. Clinical trials on fennel seed extract for infant colic showed statistically significant reductions in crying time compared to placebo, which matters because almost nothing works reliably for that condition. Roman, Greek, Ayurvedic, and Chinese medical traditions all independently documented fennel for digestive complaints. That convergence isn't coincidence. Anethole also produces mild estrogenic effects, so people with hormone-sensitive conditions should be aware of regular high-volume use. Every part of the plant is edible: fronds, flowers, pollen, and seeds. The pollen is particularly prized in Italian cooking for its concentrated flavor and can be harvested by shaking flower heads into a bag in late summer. California lists it as a noxious weed and sells it as a gourmet ingredient at farmers markets in the same breath. Number 20. Mustard greens, wild mustard. Sinapis arvensis shows up in ancient Egyptian texts, Roman farming records, and medieval European agriculture, always as a problem plant that competes with crops. It's been fought continuously for thousands of years, and it's still growing in every grain field and vacant lot in the temperate world. Wild mustard belongs to the Brassicaceae family, the same family as broccoli, kale, and cabbage, and it carries the family's defining chemistry: glucosinolates. These sulfur compounds sit inactive in the plant tissue until something damages the cells through chewing, chopping, or grinding, which brings them into contact with an enzyme called myrosinase. That enzyme converts them to isothiocyanates, including sulforaphane, and isothiocyanates, then trigger phase 2 detoxification enzymes in human cells. That's the mechanism behind decades of epidemiological research linking brassica consumption to reduced cancer risk. Wild mustard produces glucosinolates at concentrations comparable to or higher than many cultivated brassicas. Young leaves work raw, mature leaves cook down like any other green, and the seeds grind directly into a sharp condiment. It's been growing free in disturbed soil since the beginning of recorded agriculture, producing the exact compounds that now drive billions in broccoli supplement sales.